We've looked, and not just at the members of the task force, but we look at private sector forecasters who are rebooting their analysis of what the Canadian economy is going to do, what's going to happen here in British Columbia. You have access to those public documents. I have access to finance, running those numbers, putting up against the models that we have here in British Columbia. And we don't know yet when we're going to be starting to come out of this, not just in British Columbia, but indeed across the country. And example would be our forestry sector. Markets are now contracting at a rate that is unprecedented. Access to our neighbors, compromised by the softwood lumber agreement, but also by just a general slowdown in housing activity there. So we're going to have a buildup of inventory that will be hopefully flying off the shelves in the not too distant future. But that startup on the forestry side is really dependent on markets. The challenges we saw prior to the pandemic arriving on our shores was a market-driven challenge. That market challenge remains, but it's been complicated by a complete shutdown of a lot of activity south of the border and also with our other trading partners. So this is, again, not just about kickstarting British Columbia. We need to see positive outcomes with our markets around the world. As a small, open economy that depends on trade, we need to make sure our trading partners rebound as well. So I've got my fingers crossed for the United States to get it together as quickly as possible. I've got my fingers crossed that we can continue to expand markets to new places and take advantage of the fact that here in British Columbia, we got in the front of this faster than some other jurisdictions. Another example would be the film industry. Film and television just completely shut down, not just in British Columbia, but indeed around North America. And we want to be in a position, based on the initiatives that we've undertaken and the hard work of British Columbians, to say to those who want to restart their filming, whatever it might be, whether it's television, major motion pictures, all of that activity, we want it to come back to BC as quickly as possible. But we need to put in place the building blocks for that to happen. And that is speculative at this point, Vaughn. I could speculate with you, but I'm sure you'll be able to get that done without any help from me. And I don't mean anything by that, but it is speculative at this point. I've talked to Minister Freeland, I've talked to the Prime Minister, I've talked to premiers across the country. We're all focused on this, but we all come at it from a different perspective depending on where our strength was prior to the pandemic. And I think BC was in a better position than some of our other provinces across the country because of our fiscal situation. That's deteriorated, but the natural resources that we have here, the innovative economy that we have here, the tech explosion that has helped us carry on, the value of being in the same time zone as Hollywood, all of those things have not gone away. All we've done is slow down the economy so that we can flatten the curve. And when we start up again, those competitive advantages will remain. I believe that we are on our own timeline. We have been from the beginning. We saw this early, we've addressed it early, and we will perhaps come out from underneath it early, but the data, the science will direct us in that regard. We will be different from other jurisdictions because of where we are and what steps we've already taken. I think comparing to Washington State is a challenge. A lot of our community transmission was a result of the outbreak in Seattle. And so the border issues were really important to us, and that's why I pushed the federal government so hard. I'm grateful that they're now expanding the program we have here in BC to other border points in Quebec and Ontario, so that we don't have to cross-reference flights from, connecting flights from Toronto into Vancouver to make sure we're capturing all of those Canadians and British Columbians coming home. But these are initiatives that we're taking to protect and flatten the curve. What metric we use, again, I'll leave in the hands of Dr. Henry. The modeling will be available on Friday. She'll be able to talk more specifically about what she's looking for to give signals that we can start up in various places. And it will be a phased-in process. I think Vaughn has referenced that in the past. It's not going to be snap your fingers and we're back to the way we were. That people need to push that out of their minds. This will be a phased-in response, as we've seen in other jurisdictions, and as I expect we'll see in other parts of Canada. I have a very positive relationship with Governor Inslee. I haven't spoken with them, and I've lost track of time. I'm in that. My spouse is calling it that week between Christmas and New Year when you never really know what day it is. And I know we're in mid-April, and I haven't talked to Governor Inslee for some time, but I know that we were of the same mind on how we needed to approach this, particularly on the border issues, and the connections between the Cascadia corridor, as it's known, between British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, and, of course, Northern California, as well as into the south when you look at Hollywood North and all of the film production that takes place here in BC. Those connections are long-standing, and they will endure. Have they been strengthened or weakened by the current situation? I think we've all become a little bit insular. I mean, again, as I say, I regularly talk to Governor Inslee, but I've been leaving him alone and he, me, as we grapple with these challenges internally within our own borders. And I think that's appropriate. I think that all of us, as I said, across Canada and across North America and indeed around the world, are addressing this in different ways. The principles are the same, as Dr. Henry's laid them out for everyone to understand. The principles are the same, but where we are in the development of the virus, where we are in responding to it, is different from place to place. You look at California and their response and juxtapose that or put it beside New York, similar sizes, of course, California much larger, but their outcomes have been drastically different, and I think that speaks to again early detection in Washington State, catastrophic at the beginning because their first exposure was an outbreak in a care home, so you saw significant deaths at the front end. But Governor Inslee and his public health officials got on it right away, again, working not just with British Columbia, but other neighbors. And we're seeing positive results there to the point that Governor Inslee has dismantled a mobile facility and sent it to another jurisdiction where they can use it. So I'm confident that the relationships that we have will endure this. I don't know if it brought us any closer together. Quite the contrary. I think all of us were looking inward. And when the moment comes when we can reestablish those relationships, I'm very much looking forward to seeing Governor Inslee, Governor Brown in Oregon. I've not yet met Governor Newsom, but I look forward to that as well.